Thank you for listening to this episode. Make sure you come back for the next episode covering the points of this conversation.
And follow the podcast on social media by finding @PrestigiouSPod.
Follow me, Mr. Kent, at Mr. Chris R. Kent.
Follow me, Chris Bean, at Chris Bean Official.
Join our Discord for exclusive content and personal interactions.
And if you'd like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life, you can reach out to me, Chris Bean, on one of my social media platforms, or by emailing the podcast directly at prestigiousInitiative@gmail.com.
Lastly, sign up for our newsletter either through social media or on our website.
This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Bean, and here with me is Chris Kent. Hello, Mr. Kent.
Hello, sir.
Today we have a remarkable guest who's not only a speaker, but a force in the world of personal transformation. Joining us today is John James Santangelo. John, it's an honor to have you on our show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Very good. And, John, can you start by maybe telling us a little bit about what brought you here today? Tell us who you are. Give us a little bit of your backstory.
Pretty simple. I always say this. I think I'm probably normal, like most people, normal, whatever that word means, right? We're all looking for answers to life, in our journey along the way. And I think the two biggest questions philosophers have asked for, millennia is, who am I and what am I here for? Right. And I think growing up for me, about 14 years old, I stumbled across the book Think and Grow Rich. And I was just obsessed by the philosophy that Andrew Carnegie gave him at, 19 years old? Napoleon Hill started writing the book, took him 20 years, and he interviewed over 500 successful people around the world at that time. And I was just so fascinated by the thinking process of how people get what they desire. In fact, it probably sounds like a pitch for his book. The first chapter was a burning white heat of desire, he called it. And I was always fascinated by that. What does that mean? Right? What drives us? And that was the question really I kept asking. What's driving me? And what do I want to do? Going through life, my parents got divorced. I had a bottle of pills in my hand. I thought I was going to end it all, and heard my grandfather's voice in the back of my head. And he says, you're better than this. And that was about 19 years old. I changed my environment. I think that was the biggest challenge for me, is surrounding myself with better people that really put my energy, I say this energy because everything's energy, put my energy in check and really held me accountable, especially the people that I really looked up to. And from there, I wanted to find work. I call it work. It's really not work. I'm sure you guys understand the same thing, right? What you do isn't work when you love what you do. What do I want to do for the rest of my life? And I kept asking and asking and asking for years. It took me 10 years to figure this out. Went back to school, got my degrees. I just finished my PhD in clinical hypnotherapy and philosophy just a couple of years ago. But during that time, I found out two things about myself. I knew, one, I love to teach. And the second thing, I love to entertain. And then I came across the thought of, what am I going to do with that? Okay, well, I could teach. I could go to school and teach traditional school. And I thought, that's not going to work. I'm not really good at fitting in a box. So I came across the idea of public speaking, looked into that, trained with some of the best around the world in public speaking, went on from there. Obviously, in 1987, somewhere in that time frame, Tony Robbins came along. I was fascinated by NLP, looked into that. I got certified, went on to get 3 or 4 different certifications from different trainers around the world in NLP. And I loved how Neuro-Linguistic Programming really came about. It was a philosophy of change and how everybody can manifest what it is that they want. And I came across the idea of this. Success is really simple. And whatever that means to you guys that are listening out there, success is different for everyone. Relationships, money, health. Success is just knowing what you want, having a clear vision, and then most importantly, learning to get out of your own way. Right? And those are the tools that I talk about. What are the things that hold us back? What are the obstacles and the roadblocks? And you guys know this probably best, it's our mental capacity, the thoughts that we think, that we choose to think is probably a better way to say it, that produce behavior and produce results in our life.
Well, okay, so I'm going to go off on a couple things here because
Yeah.
There's a connection that I just made from there. You talked about your environment and you needed to change your environment. I think that is monumental.
Absolutely. Yep.
James Clear says in his book Atomic Habits that,
Yep.
that there were studies that had Vietnam vets that were addicted to heroin just because of the environment that they were in there.
Yep.
And heroin is one of the hardest things to break away from.
To
But
break.
by
Yep.
moving back to the States and re-establishing themselves in a different environment, they were able to quit cold turkey with little to no side effects, which is monumental. And then
Yeah.
that linked with your mental thoughts, right? We are a collection of thoughts and stories that we're told and then believe throughout all of our life.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, those things start to become our surroundings, our environment, our mental environment, as it were. And if our mental environment is closed down and holding you hostage, so to say, and keeping you where you are, then you can't grow beyond that because your environment doesn't change. And you may change your physical environment, but if you don't change your mental environment, then you're still stuck. You get stuck in the same patterns that you were in previously.
Yeah, they definitely, Chris, they definitely work in conjunction with each other, your environment and your mindset, right? You can change your mindset. And what I found in our NLP trainings, we have a 12-day certification at 6 weekends in a row. We do twice a year. What I find when people come into the course, they come in with a certain mindset and goals. And then when they leave, their mindset changes. And then I hear later on that their environment changes because their mind shift of, basically empowered them in here because now they realize, wow, I'm in control. And a lot of people was just crazy to even have this thought of, they didn't know really, you can say this as, I love this metaphor, who's driving the bus, right? Who's driving the bus? And if we don't realize that we're in control every single moment that we're consciously awake, right? Then how are you ever going to get to where you need to go or you want to go? And so we work on both, right? I mean, I can't change somebody's environment. As a clinical hypnotherapist, people come into to my courses or, I'm working with them individually, and I can't go home and say, okay, you're in a really abusive relationship. I can't tell them to leave because I don't know their situation personally, right? I don't know if it's a learning experience for them. One of the things people say is everything that we go through in life is just a lesson, right? The challenge is, are we learning the lesson? Right? I believe this. I think God taps us on the shoulder and says, hey, here's a challenge in your life. Here's a problem in your life. And we don't get the lesson. So then he smacks you upside the head a little bit harder next time. Right? Whatever that means to you, coincidence, things that come along in life that were not so pleasurable. And eventually, if we don't get the lesson, something really hits us hard. Like, I'll give you an example, and this happens a lot to people. With health, they don't take care of it, and something taps them upside the head. Maybe they get a cold or they get sick. They don't learn. And probably soon, maybe they get, they get sucked down into the system for a while, into the hospital. And my wife works for the hospital. I understand the system. And then pretty soon that doesn't really wake them up. And all of a sudden, now they have a severe illness. And that's usually when they figure it out. We always say in NLP and psychology, people don't change until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change. And what that means is, as you were just saying, Chris, about these vets, people don't change until they hit rock bottom, which is so sad. I was on a podcast yesterday and we were talking about this. People don't come to us, whether it be a therapist, a counselor, or a coach, because life is going great. They don't say, my God, my relationship is amazing. I love my wife. I love my husband. Can you help me make it better? Or I'm making so much money. I'm serving the community. I want to do more. It's usually not like that, right? They come to us for two reasons. They're feeling feelings they don't want to feel, and they're doing behaviors they don't want to do.
Well, okay, you're right on. Yes. And I think that probably the key thing there is they realized that they're feeling feelings that they don't want to feel, and they're doing things they don't want to do. And then they're on they realized that they need to make a change. And so they went to somebody like you to make that change, because there's a whole nother class of people that are doing the same things, they're feeling the same things, but they're not willing to do the work to change yet.
Well, and that's what it is, right? That's really what it is. In fact, I put a simple acronym together. It's called ACT, A-C-T. First is awareness, as you were just saying, Chris. It's awareness. It's not just the awareness of, I need to do something, but it's the courageousness, the ability to take on that challenge in your life, right? Because as you were just saying, you can say, oh my God, I'm sick, I'm not healthy, and then still not do anything about it. That's the challenge. And I see a lot of clients, they don't want to acknowledge that it's their responsibility in what's working or what's not working in their life. You know, one of the things Dr. Wayne Dyer says, he says, responsibility is responding with ability. And I just love that quote, responding with ability, because that's what responsibility is about. Taking on our own challenges in our life, our own problems, our own outcomes, our own desires, our own goals. You know, they say, it's like, and most people do this, right? You know this. They point the finger at other things in their life. Oh, it's traffic, right? I'm frustrated, right? It's my boss. It's my relationship. It's the kids. I'm not making enough money. And when they point the finger at something, there's always three pointing back at them. And I love that metaphor, right? It's taking ownership and responsibility for your actions and your behaviors. That's the first step. And most people do not want to do that because the ego, the id, the super ego won't allow them to say, oh, it's me. It's my fault. It's my underpinning of the world that I see outside.
Yeah, it's almost like they lose the concept that they are the one commonality between all of those things that they're pointing the finger at.
Absolutely. And that's crazy, isn't that? I mean, you just said it. It's a simple concept, right? Here's one of the things that I love. See if you guys can answer this. Simple question. There's only 3 problems in life. There's only 3. Everything falls under these umbrellas. What are they?
Ooh. Well, let's say communication.
Okay, which would be underneath the umbrella of big umbrellas.
Oh, big umbrellas. Let's see. Clarity? No?
Think big problems. You're on the right track. Relationships.
Okay, relationships.
Relationships with ourselves and other people in the world,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So that can be your self-esteem, your clarity, whatever that is, and then how we communicate with other people. That's number 1, which usually happens around 13 years old when our testosterone and estrogen kicks in, and we start realizing, oh, there's the opposite sex or the same sex. We start realizing, wow, there's this environment outside of myself, right? Because up until then, we're in this autonomous phase where there's nothing outside of it. It's always me. I'm the universe, right? And we start discovering about relationships. And then somewhere around 19, 21 years old, the next problem starts happening, which is what? What do you think?
Identity?
Nope. That would fall under relationships.
Money.
Woo! Money. And that usually goes on for a long period of time, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to figure out how we fit into the world and our career, our identity. So for men, we attach our identity to what we do, right? And then later on in life, the third problem usually comes along, which is
health.
Yeah. But bam, smart man. Relationships, money, and health. Guess what? Not one of them are taught in school. That's crazy. That's crazy talk. That our educational system, which, by the way, was designed by John D. Rockefeller back in 1902 or so, he said, we need workers. And he put billions of dollars into an educational system because up until then, there was only the red schoolhouse on every corner. There was no system in place. And he unified it. But unfortunately, it's still designed for workers. In fact, Elon Musk had said recently he's starting to develop an elementary school. He's got 5 of them built. It's a whole new way of thinking, critical thinking outside the box, not just being able to pound a nail, right? And that's what we were designed for.
Yeah, that is really interesting. So I've done a little bit of research into the schooling system. I have two young kids, um,
Yeah,
kindergarten
you know this
and
then.
first grade. Yeah, yeah, right. And the interesting thing, I was listening to a video last week about Jordan Peterson was interviewing somebody about how they're teaching kids how to read nowadays, and they're not
Right,
actually teaching
right,
them how to
right,
read and spell
right.
or to sound out the words anymore. They're teaching them
Yes,
these are the words you should know. So when they come
right,
up, you say that thing, but they're not actually
right,
reading it. They're not understanding it. They're
right,
not understanding the
right,
context that goes with those because they're not reading them. And
right,
then when the word comes up that's longer that they don't actually know yet, they don't have the ability to actually sound out that word anymore because it's not
right.
on the list. I don't know it, and they don't know how to sound it out, which is
That's called
wild.
comprehension,
Yeah.
right? It's called comprehension. It's understanding the word itself, not just being able to use rote memory and go, oh, there's cat, C-A-T.
Yes.
Well, cat can mean a lot of different things. In fact, one of the things in our NLP course, we talk about this. The environment outside of us, and we can get deeper, and really this is how we think, because I love NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Neuro, mind, body. Linguistic is the language that we talk to ourselves with, the mind-body connection, the language that we have with communicating with other people, and the programming, which are basically, as James Clear says, the habits. The habits are mental strategies that we produce over a long period of time that we keep running, because the unconscious mind is kind of like an iceberg. It's 90% of the unconscious mind is below the surface, which runs our body. It runs our body. It makes us breathe, right? Pumps our blood, digests our food, eliminates our food, keeps us from danger, which is the prime directive of the unconscious mind, to keep this mechanism, this soft tissue mechanism, safe. That's all it's designed to do. So every thing that it does in the thinking process, is to make sure that we are consistently safe. The unfortunate thing, it does it in a manner when we want something that could be good for us. Like, and you guys understand this. We all do this, right? We want something, it's a goal, put it out in our future, and we move towards it. If there's any pain associated with that in any way, the unconscious mind, which runs 90% of us, goes, no. That could bring us pain. So we avoid it. In NLP, we say we do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. That's what the biological system is designed to do. Avoid the pain before we even think about pleasure in the system.
Well, and so, okay, that's really interesting because, of course, we as humans, we want to avoid the pain. We want to, avoid work essentially because work is pain is how we see it. But
Right.
we really
Right.
were built and meant to walk uphill. We were meant to do the
Yeah.
challenges.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
really it's through walking through those challenges and oftentimes facing the failures and being understanding of those failures are there, like you said, to God smacking you upside the head. Hey, listen, learn from this, grow from this, so that you
Right.
can do this
Right.
next thing. And,
Right.
one door closes, but you have another door that opens. And one thing that I have done is built a goal framework, and part of that, one of the steps in there is to anticipate obstacles. Think ahead
Right.
about things that will
Right.
likely go wrong. And
Yep.
then when they go wrong,
Yep.
how do you plan on getting back on track? Because of course,
Absolutely.
I talk about life. Life is like a obstacle course with pitfalls and trees that sprout up and walls that change all the time and spikes and all these things. And of course, you have to navigate it blindfolded. You have no idea what's going to happen next or what the next turn is going to be. So with that, you have to understand that changes are going to happen. Failure is essential. You're going to fail, and if you fail, why did you fail? How can you
Yeah.
improve? And when you fail,
Yeah.
what can you do to get back on track to achieve that goal that you want?
Yes. Yes. And that's exactly what people are most afraid of, Chris, is that failure mechanism. It's that failure mechanism, right? Again, the ego doesn't want to fail because it doesn't want to take responsibility for our part in it, which is it's only us, right? Yeah, in my first marriage, which lasted a year and a half, I knew going in it wasn't going to work. But I had 300 people coming to my house the next day. And to this day, people ask me, well, what happened? I go, wasn't her. Even though it was me. I made the wrong choice. I made the wrong choice to put myself in that situation. That was huge for me. Even though I've done that my whole life, the very first time I get married, I want to get married, and I know it's wrong, and I still do it. What in God's name was I thinking? Now, how many of you listeners ever done something like that where you knew going in, right? that it wasn't good for you, yet we still do it. That's crazy how the mind thinks. It's amazing. So really here's what happens in the brain and the mind. They're honestly not the same, because the brain is just the physical mechanism. The mind is ethereal, right? It's out there. We take in information from the outside world through our five senses, regardless of whether you think there's a sixth sense or not. Through our five senses, we see, hear, feel, touch, and taste, smell, and taste. We take in this information. It's passed through certain filters in our mind, our past, our memories, our attitudes, our beliefs, our values, and we make some internal representation of it. And through that internal representation, which we fixate on, it changes our state of mind. And in that state, in that emotional state, we behave, we act. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a real simple example. I do this in class. I'm going to say a word which is coming in from your outside world, and you're going to make meaning of it. You're going to filter it. So I want each one of you to, in your mind, think of this word. And when I point to you, if you can see, I'm pointing either one of you, tell me the first thing that pops in your head. Okay? Ready?
Yep.
Dog.
Cat.
Dog.
Beagle.
Beagle. Interesting. Same word, different interpretation. Okay? Now, we can drill down and I could say beagle. What pops in your head?
Brown.
Dog.
Dog.
Cat, right?
Cat.
Okay. We can continue drilling down. Now, when I do this with a more complex word, like, you ready? Let's do it again. Love.
Oh, relationships.
Love.
Partner.
Relationships.
Family.
Partner.
Best friend.
Interesting. We start drilling down. Now, those words hold power because they immediately change your internal state of mind, your emotional state. Now, if you were dumped last night and I said love to you, what kind of emotional state do you think you'd be in?
Much different.
Right?
Yes.
If you had just found the love of your life yesterday and won the first date and you go, that's it, and I said love, changes your emotional state. One of the things Tony Robbins says, those states hold meaning. They hold meaning. What does it mean to you? And through those meanings, we act, we behave. That's the only thing that we see in our physical world is the behavior. We don't see the meaning and we don't see the emotional states. So NLP really was the basis of learning what the three best therapists in the world were doing to get change in people back in the 70s. And one of them was this communication model. We call it the communication model, how we process information, because again, it's just a mechanism that we live inside. How does this mechanism produce results for ourselves? Well, one of the things, as you were saying before, Chris, is we take in these meanings, we can change the meaning. We can change the meaning behind that cat or that dog or that relationship or that word love. We can change that, which then will change our emotional states, which then will change our behavior. And we've all had that experience where something has been said to you and, oh my God, that's right. That's so weird. I never thought about that before. And all of a sudden it changes your internal world, which then changes your external world. Because one of the things I say is your external world is just a mirrored reflection of your internal world.
Now, okay, we've teased out NLP for a little bit, a couple of the concepts. Give me, what would be like a key takeaway somehow that our listeners can apply some NLP tactics, mindsets in order to grow and improve?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's talk about what the world is for us, right? Every single person. It is those internal representations that we make of our environment. That's all it is. That is your world. And we store those internal representations as movies in our past. That's all our world is one giant movie of our past and a perception of what it could be in the future, right? The unfortunate thing is when we pull up problems or even any event in front of us, we have to make meaning of it. So what we do in NLP, we call it a transderivational search. We go back into the past and we look for that file cabinet that's like this event we're dealing with now. We pull it up into the moment and place it usually over the top of this event and go, oh, I understand that. I've done that before. And we usually act in according to the past, not in the information that we're dealing with in the present moment. That's the crazy part, right? That, well, if it didn't work before, how is it going to work today? Which, this Einstein said the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So if all of who we are, by the way, love this. I'm going to ask you guys a question. When you wake up in the morning, right when you open your eyes and you know you're alive, how do you know to be you?
So it's what I've always done.
I suppose it goes back to that filing cabinet. I pull something out and do what I did
Which
yesterday.
are called what? Which are called what?
Memories.
Yeah.
Memories.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only way that you know to be you. Right? Think about the Born series, right? When he loses his memory in the beginning, he doesn't know who he is. What does that tell you about the brain and the mind? We can change, right? You don't have to be you. You can be anybody you want to be, but we choose to be because it's what's called the known. It's what the known is, and that we live inside that comfort zone, right? And you've heard this before, life begins outside of our comfort zone. Well, that's where the challenges begin because that's where a lot of the unknown is and the fear is. And so we tend to avoid it. Deepak Chopra says, life begins outside of that comfort zone because that's where all the possibilities lie, right? So what we're doing, guys, is we are running this movie over and over and over again every single day of our life. In fact, I don't know where this came from. It says 98% of our thoughts, which are about 50,000 a day, are the same as yesterday. How could you have anything different today or tomorrow if 98% are the same as yesterday? We have to find out how to live in that 2%, which is stepping into the unknown or the fear, right? So we're running this movie over and over again. I'll give you a perfect example. Somebody comes to me with a phobia or massive anxiety. What movie are they running in their head? Right? If you guys out there in listener land, you've ever had a bad relationship before and you think about it, you're running that tape over and over again, that it didn't work. We can change those movies. That's where NLP comes in. We can change those movies. And I'll give you an example, a really easy, simple one to do. As you're sitting there in those seats, think of something that bothers you. But when you think about it, on a scale from 1 to 10, it's only about a 4 or 5. Nod your head when you can think of something like that. Okay. You can do this. You guys up there can do this too as well. Just think of something in your mind that bothers you, but you're kind of done with, but it gives you a little angst. Now, let me ask you this. Nod in agreement if I'm close. Chris, is it in black and white or color?
The thought process that I'm going through?
The picture that you brought up, the picture that you brought up is in black and white or color?
Color.
Okay. Chris,
Color.
Black and white or color?
Color.
Is it moving or is it still?
Still.
Mine's moving.
Okay. Is it 3D or is it flat?
3D.
Yeah, 3D, I would say, yeah.
Is it panoramic or is there a boundary, like a frame around it?
Boundaries.
Frame, yeah.
Any sounds associated to it? Somebody talking to you talking to yourself,
Yes.
outside noises,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Any feelings from those pictures and sounds inside your body?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what NLP is based on. That's how we code our experiences through these sub-modalities. Those are called modalities: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. We represent our world through those modalities. Everything that we think, everything is based upon those visuals, those sounds, and those feelings. And what happens is, the stronger the feeling, the stronger the memory. And if it's a traumatic emotion, it's going to be a traumatic event. And what we do in NLP is we just We just rip away the emotion. We don't have to eliminate the event to make it go away. We just have to eliminate the emotion attached to the event. I'll give you an example. Do you remember 11 days ago brushing your teeth?
No.
No. Do you remember the day that you graduated high school?
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, if I said to you, Chris, if you got a phone call when you were brushing your teeth 11 days ago that you just won the lottery, would you ever forget that moment?
Definitely
No.
not. Yeah.
Or if somebody called and said one of your friends just passed away.
No.
Those memories are ingrained by emotions. And this is how we pull up those events of the past, because they're emotionally attached. And that's what people do when they have a phobia, or if you're afraid of anything. You bring up this past event that has a significant amount of emotion attached to it, and it seems like it's real right now. In fact, my aunt is allergic. She has a phobic response to snakes. Crazy thing. We're having a big party at my house one year. I don't know why. I had a plastic snake thrown on the front porch. A little thing. She walked in and lost her mind. No kidding. This was at midnight. She ran down the middle of the street at midnight, freaking out. This is how phobics respond, right? Whether it be an elevator, fear of flying, they just, it doesn't have to be real. The event in front of them doesn't have to be real. They're pulling up this past event and they're bringing it up right here, right now. And it's like, wow. We do the same thing with looking for a new job or go ask somebody out, right? For the first time, right? Wanting to make more money. Oh God, I'm not going to go there. It's the emotion that's tied to that past event. We're telling us, it's one of the things Tony Robbins says again, is we're telling ourselves the same story over and over and over again. And we live in that story. And you've got to change the story. So you ready for the change? Okay. Can you guys bring up the same event you were just thinking about a moment ago?
Yep.
Chris, was your event in black and white or color? I don't remember.
It was a color.
It was in color. You're both in color. Okay. Can you make those pictures black and white?
Mm-hmm.
See if you can shift them to black and white. Okay, good. Hold that thought. If the picture's right in front of you, I want you to move it far off to the left and start pushing it farther and farther away. As you do that, as you're pushing it farther and farther away, put some circus music to it. Dun, 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 and push it far enough away. It's almost the size of a postage stamp, way off in the distance, that black and white picture, way over there, that's playing circus music. Now lock it in. You know that sound a tug of war makes? Lock it in that position way over there. Now, as you look at that picture, that black and white picture, way over there with that circus music, does it feel different?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A little bit. And sometimes, for a lot of people, a lot. That's how we play with our mind. Because all we're doing is bringing up old pictures, sounds, and feelings. And if we can manipulate these pictures, sounds, and feelings, we can change our results or our behavior. With a phobic response, something like that, the co-developers of NLP found that we don't want to work with phobics to alleviate their problem. We want to work with people that had a phobia years ago and find out what they were doing in their mind to make the shift. And all we do is take that strategy or that program and give the phobic this new strategy. And what the crazy part is, what they found was that all phobics, when they learned to eliminate the emotion from it, they were distancing themselves. They were disassociating themselves from the event, like I did with you guys, just push it off in the distance. So the process, real simple, was we have them sit in a movie theater of their mind, in a chair in the front row, and we have them watch the event up on the screen of themselves. But at the same time, we disassociate themselves from the front of the movie theater and go back into the projection booth. So they're watching themselves down in the front row, watching themselves up on the screen. And they run the story or the film backwards as fast as they can in black and white. We normally run that and it literally takes about 10 seconds. We run it backwards about 7 to 10 times, and almost 100% of the time, their phobic response is gone. Because it's the meaning and how they interpret it now in their mind. They no longer could bring up that old memory because now they see themselves disassociated, running the movie backwards, and there's no sound to it maybe, and boom. They've made meaning, they've changed the meaning of how we associate to that event. It's just wild how the brain does this.
Well, yeah, yes, lots. Wow. So I've heard of a visionary practice that is similar to that, where they I wish I could quote this specifically, so I'm going to give the vague explanation. They had a school that wasn't doing so good. Like the college the admissions were really low. Even the high school, like the graduation percentages were like 30% or something like that. This guy went in there and told the students to go through this visualization exercise where they took the kids into the movie theater, and where the popcorn machine is, they imagined the visualization, opened their head. There was like a big sink there, and they rinsed out all the negative thoughts at the sink. Yeah. And they put their mind back in, closed up their head. They went in and they sat down in the seats. And when they were sitting down when they were sitting down in the seat, on the screen, they're watching themselves successfully completing the assignments, successfully learning and growing. Yes. And they did this for like a month. And those students who did it, their graduation percentages at the school went from 30% to 80%. Yep. With just that visualization exercise, which is wild.
Same thing we just did. Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Because it changes the meaning they have about themselves. And we act accordingly to the meaning that we place on our lives. In fact, we say this in NLP, we're looking for evidence. It's called an evidence procedure. We're looking for evidence to support the meaning and the beliefs that we have about who we are. And we act according to those beliefs. I'll give you an example. Up until 8 years old, the unconscious mind, the brain as a whole, has no ability to negate anything outside of it. So anything that's said or done to us, the unconscious mind believes. It believes wholeheartedly. That's why we believe in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Up until about 8 years old, roughly in there, you start asking the kids, and you have kids. How old are your kids?
5 and 7.
Okay, perfect. Up until about 8 years old, then they start asking questions like, Dad, really? That big fat man in the suit fits down that little hole in the chimney? Before that, they don't have any concept of that. They believe everything. And it's said that we believe everything that our primary caretakers, which could be your parents, your grandparents, if you live in a foster home, whoever that is, have downloaded onto our little hard drives. That's the mechanism. We are just a computer software. That's it. That's what the brain is, not the mind. The brain is a computer software. And this is the hardware. Right? So everything that's downloaded onto our little software, we believe. We believe it. And it becomes a reality, and usually for the rest of our lives until we challenge it. Now, I'll give you the example of this. Now, I know my father's still alive. I had a conversation about this with him. I was 8 years old, Chris. I was 8. We were in the backyard of our house, our first house my parents ever bought. Paid $19,000 for it. And I remember him saying, damn it, you're so damn lazy. Now, he didn't mean it like I'm the laziest person. We say dumb things to our children, right? All the time. We don't mean it. That stuck with me. That became a belief I had. We need to be careful, folks, of what you say to your children under 8 years old. They believe it. Whether you think so or not, it becomes part of their mentality, their mindset. Now, we do one of two things in the world. We move away from pain or towards pleasure. That's it. That's what the unconscious mind, which runs 90% of us, is designed to do. And it's said that we do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. We do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. So either you're moving towards that belief or you're moving away from that belief. And I'm sure you guys can think of, and your listeners can think of thousands of beliefs that you've had installed onto your little hard drives that no longer serve you. Right? I mean, how many of them? Let's talk about money. There's a great one. Beliefs about money. Oh, money doesn't grow on trees, right? Or your parents say, oh, we don't have enough, or we can't afford it. All these negative beliefs ruminate in our mind that sometimes we attach our meaning to, our identity to, which is even worse. It's not just the behavior. We attach our identity to that stuff. Thank God I moved away from that belief system. That I even talk about it today. It must have been important because I remembered it. So I moved away from it. I became, workaholic in some way. It's hard for me to sit still, right? And I'm sure you guys have plenty out there. So we're constantly remembering, is a great word, remembering these things, and we are operating from these memories. And NLP just takes those memories and can disassociate those particular memories from the event. So then when you look back on those memories, it's just, oh, I'm just brushing my teeth. It no longer holds any power. Because again, if we go back to the presupposition of, hey, success is simple. It's knowing what you want, getting clear about it, and getting out of your own way. It's hard enough to find out what you want in life. It really is. It's such a challenge. You know this. How many people fall into work? They fall in. It's not a job. It's not a career. They fall into work because it pays the bills for a period of time. And then for men, which we attach our identity to that job, we don't like ourselves because we don't like who we've become working this job that doesn't give us any passion or joy or happiness. And then how does that affect then our relationships in life and the people that we surround ourselves, our environment, right? As you were just saying a moment ago, Chris, about that cool study. They've done so much with studies like that. One of them was simple like this. They brought in a professional coach, or maybe it was a psychologist, and told the class, they were 8 years old. They said, second graders, they said, we want you to understand something as you're moving forward today in this year, that the blue-eyed children are the smarter ones in class. They upheld that belief for the whole school year. The next one came around, then they did the same thing with brown-eyed children. And like you were saying, their test scores skyrocketed because they believed they were smarter. They believed because they had blue eyes, they were smarter. They had brown eyes because they were smarter. It's the same thing. The inception of these negative or positive beliefs affect the results that we produce every single day.
Wild. And so, okay. I want to move topics a little bit. Not that I want to be done with this because there's so much, but because I want to move on. I want to talk about your book. You have a book. Is it upcoming still? Or is it already out?
That's the ninth one I'm doing. Yes, that's that. Master Your Life, and that's what I'm working on right now, because I believe that getting a lot of information from doing a lot of different interviews and seeing what works for people. I'm of the belief I like to test theories. I don't want to just throw stuff out there and have people go, oh, where'd that come from? Well, I've worked with a lot of different clients over the last 25 years. I know other NLP practitioners. One of my best friends does this. He works with trichotillomania. You ever heard that before? It's hair pulling. You know what that is? Hair pulling, where they pull their hair out.
Sure.
And some people, a lot of it. And that comes, it's back to the same thing, like anorexia. It's a control issue. It's a control issue. Anorexia, trichotillomania, he charges $8,000 to get rid of this. $8,000. Crazy that somebody would pay that much money. In fact, when we were going through our first NLP practitioner course, he said, my God, we can get rid of a phobia in 20 minutes. I'm going to make money. I'm going to charge $300 to do this. And I laughed at him. I go, who's going to pay you $300 to get rid of a phobia? Well, when he started his practice, he was charging $8,000, and people are flying in from all over the world, because if you have a phobia to elevators and you work on the 25th floor, or you need to fly and you have a you have a flying phobia or a spider phobia, how would that serve you in life to get rid of it? People will pay endless amounts of money to get rid of their problems, right? We already know this. They'll pay endless amounts for drugs to get rid of their problems, or alcohol to get rid of their problems, or become a ridiculous workaholic to get rid of their problems. What are they running away from? Right? It's crazy what we do.
Okay, so with your book, you know, control your emotions, master your life. Obviously, there's a key tie-in to NLP that, you know, all the things that you're about. Let's see, how can you work on controlling your emotions? Emotions seem to be like the kind of the key thing in
Yes.
controlling that
Yes.
mental movie that's going on in your head.
Yep.
And the emotions
Absolutely.
really allow you to transverse and change those things that happen, that 2% of thoughts that you want to live in,
Right.
the changing thoughts. Now,
Right.
so you're doing lots of research and developing things for us and trying things out. With that, coupled with all of your past experiences, give me like the key takeaway, the key thing that you know I or our listeners can apply.
I'm going to give you one exercise, which is even better, right? So let's go back to the two things of success: getting clear, getting out of your own way. If you discover what you want, then the next part is what's holding you back, right? What are the obstacles or roadblocks, mental strategies that are holding you back? You can't get what you want if you're consistently emotionalizing something negative that's in your way, which is like a ball and chain or an anchor that's holding you back from moving forward. So I say this in this exercise. The exercise is designed simply to diminish and maybe even eliminate the emotion so you can move forward. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because you can't go forward if something is preventing you. It's that simple. The only thing that's preventing you is the emotion. That's it. It's not someone else. It's not something else. It's the emotion that you have about yourself and what you believe, your past, that's keeping you from moving forward. Real simple philosophy. So if we can diminish or eliminate the emotion, then we can see, that's a visual representation, we can see our goals more clearly. They've done plenty of studies about that. The ones that are most successful in life have a real clear vision of what they want. Elon Musk knows exactly what he's doing. He's crazy, but he knows exactly where he's going. He has a real clear picture in his head. Like we were talking about before, it's probably really panoramic. It's in color. It's got amazing sound to it. And it's right in front of him, which is compelling him to drive him forward. But if you have a negative emotion that's holding you back, I don't care what the clarity is. And some people have even said this. Oh, it's foggy. It's not real clear. And that's because the emotion is getting in the way. So here's the exercise. We have to first get the emotion out of our body. We first have to get the emotion out of our body. And the easiest and simplest way to do this, and if you study yoga, you understand the power of breath. The power of breath. So we have to take a long, slow, deep breath. I call it 2, 4, 6, 8. You take 2 breaths in. The first one is as much as you can, and then another one real quick. You hold it for 4 seconds. Let it out for 6. And you do that 8 times. I guarantee you. Yeah, go ahead.
That's the physiological sigh.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tantra yoga. There. I mean, you go back into Eastern civilization cultures. They've understand this. The yogi masters of millions of years ago. Well, maybe we weren't born then. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, understood this. Right. Breath is power. When you can take control of the breath, you take control of the body. If you do this 8 times, the emotion will subside. For 2 reasons. One, you get it out of your body, and second, it changes your focus. It changes your focus. And then the most important thing, the second piece to this exercise is, let me preempt this, your unconscious mind is so powerful. It's designed to serve you. That's all it does. The challenge is we ask such bad questions of it. And it serves us by answering those questions. So when we ask questions like, why can't I lose these 10 damn ugly pounds? Your unconscious mind goes, I love you. I'll give you that answer. You eat like crap. You don't exercise. You don't love your body. Why can't I have a healthy relationship? Well, you're not doing the right things. You're not working on you. You don't love who you are. Damn it, I want to make more money. Why am I always broke? Well, you spend too much. You don't save. You don't invest. It's a wonderful mechanism. The challenge is to ask more empowering questions, which will change your story. So the second part of this exercise is breathe, get the feeling out of your body, and ask this simple question, which the unconscious mind will give answers to you right away. What do I want instead? What do I want instead? And the unconscious mind will provide you with those answers. Now, a whole other story is if you have to, right, you were talking about before, Chris, is learning those lessons and taking those opportunities, right? Because if you ask the question, I want to be more successful in my monetary system, I want to be able to invest and save more, how can I invest safely with minimal risk? Your unconscious mind is going to give you those opportunities. Maybe your best friend that you didn't know is a CPA or an investor might show up out of the blue. Or your spouse or your friend might say, hey, you know what? I'm designing this whole savings system I have. You want to join in with me and we can maybe start this? Right. The opportunities are always there. We're just not aware of them because we're not focused on what's most important to us. So that question comes from the deepest recesses of our mind. What do I want instead? The unconscious mind will provide you with the opportunities. It's a simple technique. Breathe and ask. Breathe and ask. And it will get you out of 90% of most emotional states that you're stuck in. Now, it's not going to get you out of a phobic state because your emotions are running rampant at that moment. Or if you just got dumped. And I remember this was years and years ago. I broke up with this girl. I didn't do it. She broke up with me. I couldn't get off the floor for 3 days. I was emotionally, and I don't mean that literally. That's what it felt like to me. Right? We get stuck in those emotional states. That takes a little bit more work, right? I'm talking the emotional states that we go through daily. Oh, God, traffic. Oh, I got to breathe. John said to breathe. What do I want instead? You know what? Maybe I just want to be calm and relax for this drive and enjoy the scenery, right? Or you're in a fight with your loved one. Oh, God, he or she does this every time. Wait a minute. This is the question I ask when I'm challenged with that with my wife. I take a breath and I say, how can I get back into balance with her? That's my mantra. How can I get back into balance with her? Right? That means emotionally and physiologically because my body's reacting as well as my mind.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to dissect this a little bit. I got two key things. The physiological side, the double inhale, hold with the long exhale. I've used that countless times. I wish I would be able to use it more when I'm like in the moment, but
right.
I can remember
awareness.
Yes. I can remember a key time I had a student in martial arts school who was really anxious about doing something, and he was really worked up, and he'd been worked up before, but he was really worked up at this time. And so I went with him and his dad, and I did this physiological sigh exercise with him. And we did it like 3 or 4 times. I don't even think we did it 5 or 6, but in just those few times, oh my gosh, he calmed down. And his dad looked at me like I worked a miracle on his son. And
you're just the master.
Yeah, and I shared with the dad that technique, and he's told me a couple times that he's used that to help calm him down. And it's wild how that breathing works.
Yes.
The next thing is you kind of talked about coincidences, and coincidences are really interesting, and that's where you ask the question, then you get the answer. And to me, that is uniquely connected to Carl Jung's theory of synchronicity. Have you heard of that before?
Thank you. I was just going to say that.
Yes.
Yep. So he calls them coinciding events.
Yes.
It's no coincidences.
Yes. The wild thing is this year alone, I have had synchronicity events like multiple times a week on wildly different things.
Right.
It was really, really interesting, bizarre things. What I don't know yet what to do is what to do with those coincidences. And they're not coincidences. I understand that because there's no way they can be coincidences. But I don't know how to interact with those things. What do I do with that information? That's what I'm stuck.
You want the answer to that? You want the answer to that?
By all means.
Okay. There's a part of the brain, it's called the reticular activating system, the RAS. And it's basically like a light switch to our nervous system. It shuts on and on and on and off. Think of it this way. You walk into a pitch black dark room. And that pitch black dark room is your unconscious mind. And we walk in with a flashlight and we turn on the flashlight and we obviously point it somewhere. Make sense so far?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What do we see? That round spot of light. Normally, that round spot of light that the flashlight lights up. We can't see the rest of the room. That's our unconscious mind. Whatever you shine the light on is what shows up in your world. Whatever you shine the light on shows up. So what you did, Chris, whether you did it consciously or unconsciously, you shine that light on something that you were thinking about. It doesn't have to be a want or desire. It could just be something you're thinking about. The crazy part, now we start to get in quantum physics here, in the metaphysical world, that all reality exists in the same moment of time. The past, the future, and the present all exist now. If you've read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, he talks about that. We don't live in the past. Our fears don't exist in the past. They exist in the moment. We think they do. In the reality, he says, there's nothing for you to worry about. There is no fear in the moment because you're only thinking about the past, or you're thinking the worry about the future. That's the crazy thing. We don't learn how to use this mechanism. So when you ask that question, I don't know what to do with this. My question to you then is, how can you be more directed in your asking? If you're shining the light on something, shine it on something that you desire. Right. Most people walk around like this in life, shining the flashlight everywhere they go, and they have no focus, right? We call that focus. Because when the unconscious mind, I keep coming back to this, folks, you got to understand, it runs you. It runs you. If you're trying, I hate that word try. There's no trying. In NLP, we say trying is excusing failure in advance. When you're working on something and you're putting your flashlight on something and it's not working for you, it's your unconscious mind that's driving the bus. As Chris was saying before, you've got to step into that 2%. You got to step into that unknown where all the possibilities lie, which is what we were just talking about. That's where synchronicity exists between your thoughts and the manifestation of the world outside of you. There's something in between. That's called synchronicity. That's called opportunity. That's called possibility. But you got to focus on what it is. That's why I said you've got to ask the question. You've got to ask the question, what do I want instead? And if you ask that, and you've done this, you were just talking about this. You ever gone to the mall or a parking spot opens up right away? You're like, oh my God, I was just thinking about that parking spot. The front row, boom, it opens up. Is that synchronicity or is it just opportunity? What do they say success is? Focus, meeting preparedness, right? When you're prepared and your focus, opportunity meeting preparedness. That's what it is. When the opportunity's there, we're focusing on it. The opportunity shows up. Now we're prepared because we knew what it is that we're looking for. And so ask better questions of yourself. And again, you probably didn't even know this. If you went back to those events that you were thinking about that were just showing up, were you manifesting them or were you just thinking about them? Or were they just random thoughts that happen to just show up? Right now, when you self-direct your unconscious mind, these are the things that I want to show up in my life. I want to make more money so that I can, and again, money is just a value system, right? What is it that you want it for? Most people just, I want money. They don't even know why, right? If you have a why, it gives you more power. I want to have a healthier relationship with myself and other people. I'll give you another exercise in a second about that. I want to feel better in my body. You know, one of the things Dalai Lama says, a great quote, it's too long to say, but he basically says this. Somebody asked him, what surprises you about man? He goes, they work their entire lives to make money and they forfeit their health. Then they get to the later on in life, they spend all their money trying to recoup their health. I think that's so funny. It's so true.
Yes.
It's so true. It's crazy what we do in life. It's just wild. Again, and it keeps coming back to this. We're not taught this stuff. We're not taught how to run our brain. We're not taught how to run our brain. And imagine if we were teach these exercises, Chris, like you were just talking about that one experiment before, if we were to teach this stuff in school, we would be, forget the nation, we'd be a powerful world. We'd be a powerful community if we could teach others that there's much more important things than who sits in the office of the president. Now, I'm political, and I love the fact that we have this system, but there's just so much infighting, and we're not getting anywhere with it because we're not on the same page, right? And we should be. We're just human beings living on this spinning blue ball. In fact, the astronauts have said when they go up in space, from the International Space Station, when they look down on this beautiful blue planet, it changes their perspective. It changes their meaning about humanity. That's crazy, just a perspective alone.
Well, hey, John, before we wrap up, wonderful conversation. Really, really, and I think the biggest takeaway for me were those exercises. Those were so helpful for those, and thank you for that. But before we wrap up, do you have any key takeaways or things you'd like to share with our audience?
Life is real simple. It really is. It really is. We make it so complicated. We do. When you want something in life and it shows up, or you manifest it, or you move towards it and take action to get it, life is great. When we want something and it's a challenge in our life and it doesn't show up, we beat ourselves up, or we beat up other people, sometimes physically, some people do. And we don't take ownership of that. And that makes me sad, because it's like you guys are doing a great service to the community. You really are. I applaud you for what you do and your journey along the way, because you're giving back. And that's what it's all about, is to give back. And you talk to billionaires and millionaires that are out there doing their work and their passion, and they're always giving back to the community because they've satisfied this self inside of who they are. We get past our ego of, it's all about me and I've got to have all this. The ones that focus on themselves only are the ones that are most destitute, the ones that are most unhappy. Because when you give back, you find pleasure in that, because you're learning, you're growing. And that's what the brain, as we were talking about before, that's what the brain is designed to do, is to grow in our life, grow spiritually, grow physically, mentally, emotionally. And I don't care if it's from me, folks, or from anyone else. Go learn how your brain and body work together so that you can learn to take control of this mechanism rather than letting emotions steer and drive your bus.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And, if our listeners wanted to get in contact with you or learn more about you, where would be the best place to do that at?
Real simple. My website, lanlp.com, 5 letters. We do a practitioner training here in Los Angeles for 6 weekends in a row. I'm going to put a link into the guy's podcast for one of my first books called Discovering NLP. There's a link you can download it for free. And a book I wrote 10 years ago called Setting Goals. And it's not what people think, oh, I'm going to learn to set goals. No, setting goals is easy. Write them down. Look at them every day. Done. It's who you need to become to achieve those goals. Because the same old person is not going to be able to achieve that new goal because you would have done it already. So the book is really about value systems, who you are, who you want to become, your internal dialogue, how you talk to yourself, as we were talking about before. And then obviously there's script in there of how to actually set goals and the easiest way to do that. I'll put those 2 books up for free for you guys. I'll give you a 30-minute coaching session if anyone wants to just chit chat with me and maybe discover some of the things that are holding you back and maybe get more clear on your goals. And then most importantly, keep coming back to these guys' podcasts. I've listened to some of the episodes and they're amazing because they're giving you information you need to succeed.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you. Thanks for a powerful conversation, reminding us all that the journey to mastery begins with understanding and controlling our emotions. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe and share it. And until next time, this is the Prestigious Initiative.